Now, renting out your RV can be a fun way to make some side income. And you can even look at growing this into a full-on business venture, if that's what you want. But none of that means that it's going to be easy or always fun, to be honest. Renting out your RV takes a lot of work, and this isn't passive income. Now, that said, this is a fun business where you can share your love for the outdoors and camping with other people. In this chapter, we're going to chat all about money, how much you can make renting out your RV, and maybe even more importantly, how much it's going to cost you to get set up, and the kind of recurring expenses you can expect in this business. Now, before I break into the numbers, it's important to understand that the money you make and the costs you will incur depend on a number of factors. First, your location. Are you near national parks and other camping attractions? Because generally speaking, if you're near a national park or a really popular state or county park, that's going to equate to more bookings, higher nightly rates that you can charge, and more money for you. Point two, are you near any area with a long camping season? An example of this might be the Mid-South or the Southwest during certain times. If you're near these locations with longer camping seasons, that's a bigger opportunity. Are you near big concerts and events? Because that makes the difference. People camp at those things. But lastly, understand that when it comes to location, people camp everywhere. So even if you find yourself in an off-the-beaten-path location, you can still find success. It just might look a little different than somebody who's just near a natural attraction. Another question you want to ask yourself: what kind of a business do you want? The majority of folks renting out their RVs are renting out the family rig, and they're covering the cost of ownership, expenses, the payment, plus maybe a little extra. Now, they're perfectly happy with this because that is the business that they want. Other individuals aspire to start renting RVs and building an RV rental fleet and turn this into a full-on, full-time business. Now, that's possible too, if that's what you want, but just remember, both of these scenarios are a lot of work. Obviously, building a full-on business is a lot more work. And the direction that you choose will, of course, impact the amount of money you make and how much money this whole business costs you. Okay, so now that I've said that, on average, people that rent out the family RV off and on, when they're not using it, they can make between $5,000 to $8,000 a year in revenue on average. Now, we know this from a lot of different averages and statistics out there, but of course, that's going to go up or down depending on how new your RV is, how big it is, and the amenities that you stock it with. So in other words, if you have a huge Class A luxury camper, that's going to bring in more than a little pop-up camper. Also remember, that $5,000 to $8,000 figure, that's revenue. That's before your expenses are taken out. So now, let's chat about the cost you can expect when renting out your RV. Cost number one, cleaning. Your RV is going to have to be deep cleaned every time that you turn it over from one renter to another. It has to be sparkling clean for that next renter. So that brings up some questions. Will you hire somebody to clean your RV? That can be as high as $50 to $100 an hour on average. Will you do it on your own? Will you DIY each cleaning every time you have to turn your rig over? Well, how much is your time worth? And then also, let's talk about supplies. From cleaning supplies to the amenities you'll stock, you want to make a list of everything that you'll need in your RV, along with those associated costs, to understand how much this will take from your profits. Now, the good news is, in the PDF with this chapter, I have some stuff that'll walk you through that. Also, let's think about repairs. A good rule of thumb is to hold back 20% of your revenue to save for regular maintenance. So, for example, if you made $5,000 in revenue, you'd want to save back $1,000 just for repairs. And you'll probably need every bit of it because professional RV mechanics nowadays are charging $120 to $160 an hour. Also, what about the cost of damages plus lost rent? If your RV is damaged and you have to have it fixed, what about the rent you're going to lose? Now, it's important to note here that all the RV rental platforms, which we'll talk about in another chapter, but all of the RV rental platforms out there have you charge a security deposit in case someone damages your RV. They also have insurance coverage that will come in above that to help you in the event that damage is caused to your RV. But What if there are discrepancies between what insurance pays and what your rig is worth? And even if insurance fully covers the repair, what about the days that you can't rent out your RV and make money on those days? How much will that cost you? See, the point I'm making here is there are costs associated with this, and you want to factor in those costs because you might just see those revenue numbers and get excited. But it's important to calculate exactly, as best you can, what things might cost you so that you know the profit you might conceivably make. Now, I'm going to go ahead and give you a real-life example from my RV rental fleet. One of my rental vehicles is a Honda SUV with a roof tent on top of it. Now, people love it, and it rents well. It brought in over $5,000 in revenue last season in a 3-month rental window. Now, it's important to understand and remember, my situation is unique. I'm right by Glacier National Park, and we really only have 3 months where it's warm enough here and popular enough here where people are actually renting rigs. But still, that $5,000 in a short span might seem like a great amount of revenue until I tell you that that Honda cost me about $3,000 in repairs during the past year. Now, the Honda's older, it's a 2005, it has over 200,000 miles on it. I'm also super proactive about repairs, as you should be when you rent out your RV, and so I keep that car in tip-top shape. So that's part of the expense. Another benefit to consider, I get a ton of personal use out of the Honda. I mean, it's my personal vehicle, and I use the tent on it a lot to go camping in the off-season. But still, the bottom line is that $3,000 definitely ate into what I thought might be my profits out of that $5,000 in revenue. But of course, I might have been paying for those repairs anyway, and that's just part of the cost of owning an RV or a car and any other vehicle. The only difference in my scenario is if I hadn't listed it for rent, I'd probably be paying those expenses out of pocket instead of having renters help pay me for it. And so that's what I'm talking about when I say that some folks, they're perfectly happy renting out the RV, the family RV, and just covering the cost of it. Okay, let's chat about another cost. What about a business license? Well, a business license is generally not required, but of course we're not professionals, so you want to consult legal help on this and double check with your local and state authorities to see whether or not you're required to have a business license, because that can be an important expense. Another expense, taxes, taxes, and taxes. It's never fun, but you have to pay taxes on the income you generate renting out your RV, just like anything else. A good rule of thumb, and this might sound scary, but a good rule of thumb for your first year is to hold back 30% of your rental income for tax savings. But don't let that scare you, because remember, you have a business now. And so you can usually write off the things that you purchase for the business, like cleaning gear, camping gear, supplies, things like that. However, it's really important to note that we are not tax professionals around here. And there's all kinds of info that floats online and social media that's just wrong sometimes around taxes. So that's why one of the most important steps for your RV rental business, no matter how big or small, is to chat with a tax professional about what you can and can't write off in your rental business. All right, now like I said, in the PDF associated with this chapter, I've attached some real life examples of the money I've made versus the money I've spent on my camper van rental, that Honda with the roof tent, the hardtop roof tent on top of it. You can find that all in the PDF included with this chapter. I've done my best to give you a realistic view of the money you can make and the money you'll spend while renting out your RV. Now that said, as long as you understand that this isn't passive income, that there are financial risks to this, and that this is a lot of work, the bottom line is that renting out your RV is something you could consider growing into a full-time business, if that's what you want. Here are some examples. Large Class A motorhomes can generally generate 15 to 30 grand per year if you keep them regularly rented and run a real professional grade operation. Fifth wheel campers can do around $15,000 to $25,000, especially when you offer delivery with them, because not everyone has a truck that can tow a big fifth wheel camper. But of course, when you're talking an ultra luxe Class A motorhome or fifth wheel, your out-of-pocket costs and expenses usually go up with these kinds of operations. It's just more supplies, more cleaning, that kind of thing. So at the end of the day, the money you make depends on a number of factors. Some of them you can control, and others you can't. But as with any business, if you mix together some strong know-how, some solid numbers crunching, with a love for the service that you're providing people, and then you top all of that off with sound, fact-based decision-making, you can excel. All right, so that covers us now, folks, for the money questions that you'll want to ask yourself when renting out your RV. Stick with me as we move into the next chapter and talk all about different insurance considerations you need to have as you're thinking about renting out your RV.